just had to share this with someone. It doesn't make any sense. I got a call this morning. My boyfriend had been in some sort of hunting accident, and he was injured. They're not sure what happened. I got here and he's still in the ICU. They won't tell me anything. They gave me his things, his phone, wallet, and a pocket knife. I powered on his phone to see if there are any clues as to what could have happened to him. There is a recent note saved on his phone. It might have some of the answers of what happened. I'm going to start at the beginning. I don't know if anyone will ever read this. I just wanted there to be some record of what I've seen in this place. My name's Jeremiah Lapp. I thought I had found the perfect hunting spot for a little piece of public hunting land. Seemed to be mostly undisturbed by people. Now as I sit here, I'm not so sure where I am. I went in the day before opening day of whitetail season to set up the ladder stand. I set it up a few 100 yards in the woods. It was a bitch carrying that thing in, but I hoped it would be worth it. I was so excited I could hardly sleep that night. I arrived at the spot the next morning just before dawn. I swung the door open and stepped out into the darkness, rifle in hand. I made my way into the dense woods. Every few steps I would stop and take the penlight out of my pocket and shine it on the ground to make sure I was headed in the right direction. After the fourth time of almost falling on my face, I could make out the shape of the ladder in the dark. I shifted the rifle into my left hand and climbed up the ladder with one hand. The ladder was wet with dew and slippery, and I sat down in the little padded seat. Damn, I should have tied the rifle to the paracord I have at the top and pulled it up after I got up here. I'll remember that next time. That was kind of dangerous. I lifted the old Winchester I brought with me and pointed it down at the ground in a safe direction. I slid 4 fingers into the lever loop and pushed down, opening the action. There was just enough moonlight I see the glint of metallic cartridge. I pulled the lever back up, closing the action. I put my thumb over the hammer tightly and pressed the trigger in order to slowly lower the hammer into the half-cocked position. I was ready to go. It was just minutes before dawn. The chill that comes right before it's light out crept slowly through the woods, softly embracing all it meets in teeth-chattering cold. The light had started to peek over the trees, but it was still fairly dark in the woods. I laid back on the tree and closed my eyes for a moment. It wouldn't be long now. After a few minutes, I opened my eyes and started to look around. Light was starting to trickle in, and suddenly I was frozen in place by what I saw. About 20 yards in front of me was a huge buck, the biggest I had ever seen. My heart was in my throat and I started to shake. The light hit its antlers and they almost seemed to glow. I slowly moved the rifle into position and got the sights on him. I took a deep breath, and as I let it out, I slowly squeezed the trigger. The rifle barked in my hands, and I saw the buck stumble and run deeper into the woods. I got him. I was bursting with excitement. I couldn't believe I really got him. I couldn't wait. I had to get down and find him. I could tell I had made a good shot when he wouldn't make it far. I started to climb down the ladder. Just 2 feet from the ground, I slipped and fell off. I landed on my feet, but as soon as I landed, I heard a gunshot echo through the woods. It sounded close. Damn. Someone must have seen my deer and shot at him again. I rushed in the direction of where I seen the buck run, and I found the blood trail and started to follow it. From the amount of blood, he couldn't be too far, and I made my way through the woods much further than I thought I would have. Still no sign of the buck, or any people. 2 things were starting to weigh on my mind. 1, this is a crazy long blood trail. How is the buck still on his feet? And 2, I've been walking for at least 45 minutes, but the sun hasn't moved. It's still exactly where it was when I shot. Light was peeking into the woods, most of the sun still behind the horizon. I came over a hill to find a green canvas tent set up in a flat area, surrounded by a few cedar trees. I walked down the hill to the campsite. "Hello?" I shouted. "Is anyone here? I'm looking for my buck." No answer, just birds chirping in the trees above. It was very strange for someone to be camping out here. I was fairly certain you were not allowed to during hunting season. They must have not gotten the memo. I walked over to a little folding table set up near the fire pit, and on it was an old transistor radio and a Coleman lantern. Not a battery-powered LED lantern like you see most people have these days, but a real oil lantern. The ones you pump up and light. This thing is an antique, I thought as I lifted it off the table. I studied it for a moment, and then set it back down on the table while muttering under my breath, "Hipsters." I walked over to the tent and leaned down to the opening. "Hello? Is anyone here?" My voice was only met with more silence, so I peeked in the tent to see 2 empty sleeping bags and a few articles of random clothes laying around the tent. I guess no one's home. I walked out of the campsite, trying to pick up the blood trail again. And just a few steps away from the campsite, things got even stranger. I could see the woods stopped a little ahead, and as I got closer, I could see there was a narrow dirt road weaving its way through the woods. There was a truck backed up to a bank on the side of the road. The way the truck was sitting in it, it was taking up the whole road. I walked towards the truck. When I was close, I could see it was an old International pickup. There was a large water tank in the bed, and now I could see the tank was catching spring water out of a mature spring. Only when I was at the hood of the truck did I see the man. He was tall and wore a felt hat. The hat was brown, probably dark brown at some point, but over the years the sun had faded it. He was lean but looked strong for an old man. He looked to be in his mid to early 60s. He hadn't seen me walk up. "Excuse me, sir?" The old man's head wiped around, surprised to see someone out here. His hand immediately went for the small of his back, and I raised my hand in a symbol of peace. Even though one hand held a rifle, I spoke quickly and clearly. "I was just out doing some hunting and I'm looking for my deer." The old man just stared back at me. Getting a good look at him now, he looked oddly familiar, but I couldn't say where I had seen him. "Have you seen it?" I asked him. Very slowly, he shook his head from side to side, not breaking eye contact with me. "Okay, well, I'll just be going then." This seemed to ease him, and he let his arms fall to his side. I smiled slowly, lowering my hands. "I like the truck." I gestured towards the truck with the hand that wasn't holding the rifle. He still just stared back at me, and after what finally seemed like an hour but was probably just a minute, he spoke. "It's been a good one." His voice was deep and gravelly, and it sounded like he hadn't said a word out loud for a long time. I shook my head up and down, a little too enthusiastic. I was just happy he was responding. "I like the beard," he said, moving his hand over his salt and pepper stubble. I smiled and turned to look at my reflection in the passenger side window of the truck. There I stood, short and stocky, bushy mountain man's beard, but something was off. I moved closer to the truck window to make sure I was seeing clearly. My skin, it was ghostly pale. I touched my face, just trying to comprehend what I was seeing. I looked down at my hand, and it was the same. I was brought out of my panic by the old man's voice. "I don't think you're gonna find that buck." His voice was sort of somber now, and I turned back to him. Why not? Have you seen him? I looked down the road for any sign of it. No, I haven't seen it, but, he trailed off and walked to the driver's side door of his truck. You should know there's something following you. I turned back to the wood line I had emerged from. What do you mean? What's following me? It's, it's different for everyone, so I'm not sure, but it's best to just go towards it rather than get away. What the hell are you talking about? I shouted, full of confusion and irritation, but he didn't hear it. He had already sat down in the old workhorse and started the engine. He waved as he pulled away. Crazy old coot, I muttered as I backed away from the dust cloud. What was he talking about? Something following me? I had heard a twig or two snap behind me. I thought it was just a raccoon or a possum. I shook my head as if to sling the thought from my mind. I had now been walking an hour and a half and the sun still isn't over the trees. I'll go back to the truck and get some water, and I'll rest a while, then I'll come back and find the buck. And I started to walk back in the direction I came. Who knows, maybe I will find him on the way back to the truck. I walked back into the wood line. I headed back the way I had come. A twig snapped in the distance, and I scanned the surrounding bush for movement. Damn, I'm losing it. Making my way back over the hill to the campsite I had passed, I was struck by what I saw. This was the way I had come. It couldn't be. The green canvas tent was torn to shreds. The little folding table where the lanterns were turned over. The lanterns lay broken on the ground. What the hell? I was just here. How could this have happened so fast? I was just 100 feet away from this spot and I didn't hear anything. I heard a growl from just behind me. It was deep and low, and I put my hand to my chest to still my heart that was beating its way out of my body. My hand touched something warm and wet. I pulled it away quickly to see it dripping with blood. What the hell? I looked down and I was standing in a pool of blood. I started to feel weak and tremble uncontrollably, and I slowly turned around to see bloody footprints, my footprints. Before I could comprehend what was going on, a thrash in the shadows sent me sprinting through the woods. I ran, unsure of the right direction, unsure of anything. My foot was caught on a tree root and I fell into darkness. I opened my eyes, but my vision was blurry. I slowly stood and the pain in my chest was terrible. Stumbling, confused, holding on to trees for support, hoping I was headed towards my truck. I could see a gap in the trees, and there was my truck sitting in a field. I took another step and was plunged into darkness. I could hear a faint crackling. I slowly opened my eyes. I was looking up at the night sky. The stars looked brighter than I had ever seen them, and I turned my head to see a small fire. And there, tending the fire, was the old man from the spring. I scrambled to my feet. Easy, son, easy. My eyes darted around for my rifle. Seeming to know what I was thinking, the man pointed just behind me and said, "It's there on a log." "What are you doing here?" "Me? Well, I'm going to help you make it out." "Out of where? The forest?" "Yeah, kinda. Let me ask you some questions. How close was that second shot?" I don't know. Couldn't have been more than a few yards away." At this point, the old man just looked off in the distance for a while. "You seen any strange things since you've been looking for that buck?" "You mean besides you and how you'd know it was a buck? I just said deer earlier." The old man chuckled and pushed up his old felt hat to scratch his head. "Yeah, I am mighty strange to you, I expect. As for the buck, I know a lot of things, and I'm afraid I don't have time to explain it all to you. Well, you don't have time for me to." "What do you mean?" "We gotta get going. before it finds you. Before what finds me? I don't have time to explain it to you, and you wouldn't believe me anyway. We have to get you to the river. There's no river around here, is there? You'll see when we get there. You crossed it to get here, though you may not remember. You're tougher than I thought. I think you can make it back to the other side. With that, he turned and started through the brush. I quickened my pace to keep up with his long stride. I think there might be some other people out here in trouble. Why? Did you see someone else? No, but there was a campsite and 1 minute it was fine and the next in shambles. You can't trust what you see out here. Anything you see has already happened. You can't help anyone. I started to speak, but he held his hand up to me in silence. A gnarled old finger pointed to a briar patch a few feet away. I squinted, trying to see what he was showing me. Then the buck I shot stood up. There was something terribly wrong. His eyes were ghostly white, flies and all manner of insects surrounding a rotted bullet wound. I backed away. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The old man whispered, "Wait, wait," but I turned to run. Before I could take a step, a large, dark figure burst through the brush. I fell backwards, crawling away. A black bear stood on its hind legs before me. Its eyes were white like the buck's. The fur around his face was lighter than the rest. It seemed to make the shape of a gray skull. The skin on its lower jaw had rotted away, leaving nothing to cover his jagged, sharp teeth. A stream of blood and bile dripped from his mouth. The beast roared, and I felt frozen to the ground. He swiped a massive paw at me, and at the last second I was able to roll out of the way. I stumbled to my feet, and the bear charged. I looked around for help from the old man, but he was gone. At the last second, I flung myself out of the path of this terrible beast. I sprinted in what I hoped was the right direction. I could hear the bear tearing through the brush behind me. Finally, I slid to a stop at a bank overlooking a river. And out of nowhere, the old man walked up beside me. "You have to go now." "Are you sure this is the way?" "Yes. Oh, and you'll need these to get across." He held out 2 strange-looking silver coins. I took them and looked over them. They looked old and, well, worn. I could barely make out an owl on them. Why would I need... Before I could finish, he pushed me into the river. The water was dark green and it smelled of death. I was concerned for the old man, and I looked back to the bank. And I could swear I seen him and the bear just sitting there watching me swim across. I made it to the other side and climbed out. As soon as I was out of the water, I felt so weak. I was at my truck in no time, it seemed. I got in and began to search my pockets for the keys. Shit. I must have dropped them out there. My eyelids starting to get so heavy. I took my phone out and held it up. No signal. And that's when I started this note. I hope somebody finds. That was all that was written down. The doctors finally came and talked to me earlier this morning, and I got to see Jeremiah. The doctors say they're pretty sure he fell out of the tree while getting out. The rifle went off and shot him in the chest. They say he's very lucky to be alive. They think he might have wandered around out there for a while. One doctor pulled me aside and said he seems confused about what happened. Maybe it's the pain medication or the trauma of the whole thing. He said to just give him time. I went in to see him. I told him I read the note, and he kept asking me if they found the old man or the bear. I told him there aren't really any bears around here. And as for the man, no one lives within 10 miles of where you were found. He said the bear was right beside the truck, roaring before they found him. I told him his head was against the steering wheel, pushing the horn. That's how they found him. His delusion scares me a little. After a while of talking him through it, he seemed to accept that he was hallucinating, that there was no bear, river, or old man. After just staring at the ceiling for a while, he looked over to the orange hazmat can in the corner. Sticking out of it was one sleeve of the flannel shirt he had been wearing. He asked me to get it for him. I don't think I'm supposed to, I told him, but he insisted. I opened the can and took out the shirt stained with dried blood. I asked him why he wanted it. He said just to wait. He fished around in the front pocket and pulled out 2 of the strangest looking coins I've ever seen.